to encourage his son and others to gain wisdom. We need to understand this, yeah? Because today, as we look around, we are behind from unbelievers. Let me ask you, how many Christian scientists who get Nobel Prize in science? Do you know how many Christian scientists who get Nobel Prize in science? None. How many top thinkers today are Christians? Not many. Back then, in the Old Testament, many prominent people whose thoughts influence the world are God's children, are God's people. Take a look, Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1. Read verse 17. Daniel 1:17. To these 4 young men, who are they? The 4 young men. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. God gave what? Knowledge and understanding of what? All kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand vision and dreams of all kinds. How could they be so smart? Of course, this is not just God's gift. They must learn. They must study hard to earn it. And then Daniel chapter 1 verse 20. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he, the king, found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. And we see in the New Testament, Apostle Paul, how he not only studied the Old Testament, but also all kinds of literature. In the book of Acts, chapter 17, we see how God used him to approach philosophers, to share the good news with them. And then we see also in the history, during the first 19 centuries, because they believe in the culture mandate. Are you familiar with this term, culture mandate? There is gospel mandate, call to share the good news, and culture mandate, call to study, to learn God's creation, to understand the greatness of God. And because they believe in that, we know some prominent scientists, back then, like what? Johannes Kepler. You familiar with him? Who discovered a laws of planetary motion. Blaise Pascal, mathematical prodigy and universal genius. Robert Boyle, founder of modern chemistry. John Ray, cataloger of British flora and fauna. Isaac Barrow, Newton's teacher, Michael Faraday, giants of electrical research, Gregor Mendel, pioneer in genetics, etc. Who were they? They were Christians. They dedicate their minds to learn, to study, and to bring contribution to the world. We also recognize Johann Sebastian Bach, George Frederick Handel, the giant big composer, Rembrandt van Gogh, the great painter, and they were believers. But what happened starting the 20th century? We are behind. Why? This is, make me think. Why today most of the professors at the top universities are not Christians? Only few that claim they are Christ followers. I'm afraid this has relationship with what happened in the early of 20th century, where there is a movement that started in Azusa. For many years, the church were lukewarm. And because of liberal theology, many left church. And God brought this revival in Azusa, where suddenly, people spoke in tongues and then experienced miraculous things from God. Well, those movements, revive church, energize church to be more lively. But there is side effect in that movement. Why? As I prepared this message, I found that, what they emphasized back then is, we believe that God can do miraculous things, that God can heal sickness, no matter what kind of sickness. And they emphasize on the works of the Holy Spirit. Well, that is true. I believe, that God is still working today, that the Holy Spirit, should control and lead our lives. But there is side effect. What is that? Let me ask you a thing. If God can heal sick people, no matter what kind of sickness they have, then we think, why should we do research? Why should I go to medical school? What we need is just pray. Pray for God's healing. Pray for what? For miracle. Are you following me? Because God can do everything, right? God can heal sickness. We do not need to do research, medical, biology. We just need to pray. While non-Christian, they keep learning, studying, doing research. Millions of dollars have been spent to study how to cure certain sickness. No wonder today, most of the doctors are not Christian. They know better about God's creation than us. And if the Holy Spirit can do everything, which we believe that, but there is side effect, then they think, why should I need to go to seminary to study the original language, Hebrew, Greek? I attended a funeral, and the pastor, the speaker who led the funeral, he honestly said, I don't need to prepare everything. I don't need to prepare my speech, my sermon today, because I believe the Holy Spirit will lead me in speaking, in delivering this message. And what I heard is chaotic. Do you understand the side effect? Today I challenge you, youth, in this church. God give us culture mandate. You need to study hard. You need to learn science for God's glory. If God can use Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, God can use you today to challenge our world challenges today. So, Solomon, when he writes that do not be wise in your own eyes, it doesn't mean that, okay, don't pursue education. You don't need to study hard. No. We have to pray hard, and we also have to study hard, to work hard. This advice is given to his son. And remember, Solomon himself is a wise man. Even he is called the wisest man on earth. So, what does it mean here? Do not be wise in your own eyes. Solomon, in other words, tells his son, my son, I know you no longer little boy. Now you grown up to be a man. I know you have studied many literatures. You have gained many knowledge. And you have gotten the best teacher because you are my son. But remember, don't see yourself as a wise man. That you don't need to listen to others. That you do not need to receive advice from others and from God. Remember, you don't know everything yet. You will never know everything. So this verse reminds Solomon's son to be humble, to listen to parents, to others, and to God. And I think this is relevant for us today. Well, sometimes we heard when mother tell her boy, not to do this, not to do that. The boy said what? Mom, I'm no longer a little kid. I know what I'm doing. I know better than you. I know computer better than you. My English is better than you. So you better not telling me something. And sometimes the mother say, when I was a teenager, I didn't do like that. And the daughter say, Mom, that was 20, 25 years ago. Now the situation is different. In other words, the children don't want to listen anymore. Because what? Because they thought they know better than their parents. Well, Solomon tell you, children, even though your English is better than your parents, even though you know computer better than your parents, still listen to your parents. Because your parents have more experiences than you. Because your parents love you. And this is also for us as parents. We also need to learn to be humble, to listen to others. When I was a little kid, I remember what my grandmother told me. This was, about 100 years ago. But I still remember what she told me. Listen, she said, no matter who tell you whether he is a beggar or he is a prophet.